Recently, there were articles from super legitimate websites stating that there were hundreds of 3D printing files leaked from Games Workshop and downloaded over 180,000 times before they were taken down. Which, of course, is false. Games Workshop doesn't even use consumer printing and wouldn't have access to the correct file types to be leaked anyways. But since 3D printing has caught up with them anyways, maybe they should. You know, over the last few years, I've felt that 3D printing is so close to taking over the miniatures industry. But in my eyes, there are still two key factors that they need to conquer in order to surpass purchasable plastic miniatures. Over the last 6 months, I'm feeling that both of these two factors have, in fact, been beaten. So today, I want to talk about what those two factors are while I print and paint one of my favorite model ranges for gaming, Trench Crusade. Now, the first big hurdle that 3D printing really needed to get over was that the quality of the sculpts just haven't been there yet. It used to be that most of the STLs for miniatures were what I would call shovelware. Some, of course, were very solid, but the overall level of sculpting ability was lower compared to purchasable models, whether Games Workshop or other games or even display models. But now, more and more display sculptors are offering their models as STL files, and even more gaming companies are offering an STL option for their models as well. So, because of that, and because the amount of customers that now own 3D printers has hit such a high level, the market now favors offering your sculpts as STL files. The number of sculptors in the market has increased demand for higher quality of sculpts, and the artists themselves have responded by learning what makes a good miniature to paint. Sure, there's still plenty of models out there that are miserable to paint, whether it's way too many details or fine and sharp things that actually don't take to the painting process well. But we're finding that more and more sculptors are understanding what makes this hobby unique, and what makes a good model to paint. And because these sculptors are competing for your dollars for their files, the water level continues to rise. And since the talent is now there, with resources and education opportunities, the accessibility to become a digital sculptor that's very skilled is now starting to match the market's need for that skill set. Many games are making STL files available for their games. Some, it's even a key part of their strategy to entering the market. No longer does your company need to have millions invested into your game by producing physical models to even attempt to bring your game to market. This means the bar has been lowered as an opportunity for awesome games to be made that feature miniatures. And it pushes the established games and companies to up their commitment to actually balanced and engaging gameplay, instead of just resting on their laurels as one of the few that can afford to produce physical models. And miniature agnostic games push this even further. These are games that don't have their own official miniatures, and they just encourage you to use any awesome miniatures that you buy or print yourself in order to play their game, which is a great little reward for us finding awesome miniatures that we just wanted to paint anyway, because we can actually use them in any miniature agnostic game. Now, up until this point in the video, you've been watching me print, clean, and prep the Desecrated Saint, a model for Trench Crusade, which happens to be a game with miniatures that has a lot to do with what we're talking about today. You see, the Trench Crusade models are really impressive quality. They come from sculptors that have years and years of experience, and so they know what looks good and what's fun to paint. There's tons of options, and you can pick up a whole faction for this game for the cost of a single box of Space Marines and print them an infinite number of times. And they allow a really engaging rule set to burst onto the market and succeed on its merits, not on its investment in manufacturing. So while I dig into the painting of this model and do some experimentation while I do so, because after all, this model cost me like 50 cents in resin to print, so if I screw it up, I can just print another one. I want to dig into the second 3D printing hurdle that I had yet, until recently, to conquer. But let's catch you up a little bit on where we are in the painting of this specific model before we get into that. The cleanup and assembly of 3D printed models is very similar to any model we paint, and I'm starting this painting process in a way that I've gone away from lately. I'm just getting into some base coats and airbrushing white sloppily all over the skin so it's easier to paint with a lighter tone with the brush later. All right, that second hurdle is the 3D printers themselves. Now, there have been printers that are capable of producing high quality miniatures for a number of years now, but their cost-cutting measures led to really unreliable machines, low quality parts that led to print failures and other frustrating experiences, and the feeling you need a master's degree in 3D printing to make them work correctly and consistently. And while the quality ceiling for many of these printers was quite high, the average user experience and the consistency of getting what you want printed to that same level basically was non-existent. And this is one of the main reasons for the saying 3D printing is a hobby in and of itself. You simply needed to commit a lot of time and research to attempt to get the machines to work like they promised us they would. But all that changed for me about a year ago when I got the Hagears Ultracraft Reflex RS. This is the first printer I've ever used that consistently and reliably did what it said on the tin, and I've been using it nonstop ever since. And for transparency, Hagears is sponsoring today's video, and that's because I reached out to them because I love their printer so much. So today what I'm saying is from my experience and my opinions, not from their own media talking points. A quick side note on how I'm painting his cloak here. I'm using a dark blue and a red to create a messy, wet blend to create some drama in colors here. I'm just using a big, cheap synthetic brush for this. There's no need to be neat. I'm just making sure the wet paint is on there with the blue, and I come back with the red, I place it down, and I swish the brush back and forth to create a blend between the two colors. The only thing I'm making sure of is that the upward facing folds are more red and the shadowed areas are kept to a dark blue. All right, the main factor that I've found that separates Hagears from everyone else is its self-contained system. The resin, the software, the printer, every detail of your print job is factored into the settings the printer uses to achieve highest quality without failure. Now, that's not to say you can't tweak certain things should you want to. For example, I've created my own support profile for my 3D prints for miniatures. So the amount of supports, the size of the supports, how big they are when they connect to the model are specific to how I like my models to print. So there's next to no cleanup once it gets off the print bed. At the end of the day, all of the pain points that I've felt from my other 3D printers just aren't here. Complicated slicing software with unclear settings, failed prints, and the constant need to tweak settings to actually hope it'll work consistently. And for the first time in my life, I actually have a system that uses auto supports not only well, but they're preferred. I can just rotate the model, place those supports, and they work like a dream every time again because the system understands all the variables to ensure success. Another factor that the system brings into place is which resin you're using, because you actually choose the resin in the software because the software knows which resin will use which system settings correctly. So you're never going to have to guess, you're never going to have to tweak for a dozen prints to get your new resin to work exactly right. Another cool thing is it uses a holding tank system to keep your vat always filled to the right level, and it has a heated bed so no environmental temperatures in your house will throw off your printing. And the miniature resin itself seems to be perfect for our uses. It's just got enough give that it's not too brittle, it's never going to snap if you drop a model, but it's also firm enough that even tiny little details won't bend or warp over time. Now, my plan going into this project was to knock this paint job out in a single session, which may have been a little bit more than I had expected given its size, but I just wanted to have a low stress, throw out some base coats, and then have some fun with experimenting kind of paint session. I'm going to be messing around with different types of enamels today for this paint job, all of which come from the Villainy ink range, because I really think these are interesting and I wanted to give them a go. And these guys definitely understand the grimdark aesthetic, that gritty look that kind of helped draw me into miniature painting in the first place. Now, one thing I'm learning is that there's a bunch of different types of enamels in here, and we're going to start with the filter washes to help give us some buildup of tones and grossness to our undead skin here. What these tints allow us to do is build up nastiness in a pretty quick amount of time, allowing for the colors to blend together on the model or letting them dry and adding depth of color by slapping on more over the top. Now, because these are enamel paints, that means we use mineral spirits to thin them down, to clean our brush, and to even remove extra enamels from the model itself. Honestly, I've found that enamels are pretty easy to get used to using, and they're really fun to experiment with different tones and different techniques, and they also feel good because I can just erase any mistake I made with a little mineral spirits on a Q-tip. One important thing I'm learning here is that this fainter buildup of work is best done over light colored base coats, which is why I painted all of these areas so bright to begin with. We'll add some more heavy grime to other areas, but this was really fun to start to mess around with and learn how these tint enamels work. One mistake I've made a few times in this paint job that I want you to learn from is that it's better to thin these way down first. You can always add more layers later, but you want that tinting to be subtle, to give just that dead, slightly off-color, decaying look. I may have gone a bit too strong with some of these sections, but I still think I can pull it all together later while I was learning. Some of the nasty, gnarlier colors in these enamel sets are under the enamel wash or enamel effects range, so we're gonna put these through their paces on the armor. One thing I'm liking is that there's enough variety in these weathering enamels for me to customize them based on the kinds of metal it is, or I can build up depth of color through grime with different color enamel washes. One thing I really enjoy about using washes, enamels, and oil paints is that it's less about precision technique and being really stressed out and really focusing on a specific detail of your model, and it's more about learning the techniques and how to use them, whether it's stippling, whether it's washing, whether it's buffing them off after you use them. It's a different kind of skill set, but it's still technique based, and it feels like there's a larger ceiling on really mastering these than I've yet to grasp. It's really easy to find yourself wanting to just slop them on, but I would caution against doing that. I have enjoyed the push and pull of applying, then removing, then buffing, then applying again, so I get a natural aging over the surfaces in very little time. And I'm thinking of this aging step in this project as a natural progression past the base coats. It is not my final destination to give my final look. I've got more things I want to do, but it really helps me build up that depth and interest really quickly. And these kinds of experiments are just awesome for 3D printed models. I can purchase an entire Trench Crusade Factions STL pack for the same price as one box of Space Marines, and then not stress about ruining the paint job because it cost me like 50 cents worth of resin, and if I screw it up, I'll just print another one and paint that one. Maybe it'll turn out better. I bring up the price of a box of Space Marines because, quite frankly, this is an expensive hobby. There's so many things out there that are vying for our hobby dollars, and a 3D printer is a pretty big investment. And my Hagears printer was the most expensive 3D printer I've ever bought. It's more so than the common brands that you see advertised out there, but that's because they actually put in the quality parts, manufacturing, and back-end support to really make it worth it, instead of it being a $300 or $400 frustration machine like the other ones I've gotten. But I guess my printer was cheaper than a single Warhammer army, and then it can print as much stuff as my heart's content for basically no additional cost other than obviously the price of the STLs and buying more resin. But really, over time, it's just going to surpass the cost of plastic models for my savings. And I get to print all sorts of different games, all sorts of different models, all sorts of different terrain and basing bits, all sorts of things that if I have an idea of something I want to find, someone's probably made a file of it out there. I could pick it up, sometimes even for free, and then I could just print it and see if I like it. I was having so much fun with testing all of these enamel colors out that I could have just kept going, but be careful with that. Things can just start to look like a muddy mess if you just keep going enamel on top of enamel on top of enamel. So a bit of restraint is a good thing. I have added so many enamels to the model at this point that I did decide to put down a layer of matte varnish over everything to hold those enamels in place so my acrylic paints don't bead up over the top of them with that oil. And then I can bust out my acrylic paints and start by bringing in some random pops of color in a chaotic way that leans itself into that grimdark aesthetic, and it still feels at home with all this grime. I use a few greens, a dark blue, and a red to bring in color depth with our grime. It's not about grabbing your attention or being a focal point. It's about creating more interest in some otherwise uninteresting areas that really give us more depth and interest to the model. From there, we do have to bring back the interest to the important parts of the model, and that means re-highlighting up all the sickly undead skin, including our little man that's trapped in the belly of this demon. I just go back in with the same color that I base coated with and retouch all of the higher regions. Now again, you don't need to be exact with this step. Same with highlighting up your metallics. You can just tap your brush over those raised areas, creating dots and lines to go with this chaotic, grim, dark aesthetic instead of going for a perfectly smooth look, because that wouldn't fit here anyway. One thing I find myself taking for granted every time I finish a paint job on a Trench Crusade model or something else I've 3D printed is I forget that this was actually a 3D printed model. There's no mold lines, there's no pock marks, there's no layer lines from the printing. It just looks like it came directly out of a plastic kit. And again, it didn't cost me hardly anything. And so in one painting session, I get one model closer to a finished warband of my Cult of the Seven-Headed Serpent, and I got to mess around with some enamel washes to go with this grimdark aesthetic that I'm going for the warband. So, final thoughts on 3D printing versus plastic models. Do I think that 3D printing is going to put plastic model companies like Games Workshop out of business? No, at least not in the near future. Do I think everyone should stop buying Games Workshop or other plastic models for games that they like or models that they just like to paint? Again, no. I love Games Workshop models. I'll continue to buy them and paint them. But what I will say is this. Not only is 3D printing not going anywhere, it's now consistent. It now has a high quality of final product, and the user experience is now to the point where I love using my 3D printer just about every single day. And in that end, it is going to give traditional business plans that use plastic miniatures a run for their money. And that's not even taking into consideration the extremely high rate in which the quality of the sculpting has improved in 3D printing compared to basically staying the same for plastics over the last 5 years. Now, I don't want to end this video without mentioning safety and its role in 3D printing. Just like any piece of serious equipment, you need to understand the safety protocols and follow them. That means you always print in a well-ventilated room. That means that you are always careful when dealing with resin, using gloves and respirators, and you always make sure you clean everything up well if you get any sort of spills or drips. But yeah, just make sure that safety is a part of your routine. A big thanks for hanging out today. If you wanted a closer look at the HateGears printer, I put a link down in the video description below, and if you use my code that's on screen and down there, you get $50 off your printer. A big thank you for watching my videos. It means a lot. A big thank you for subscribing to the channel. Also, all of you that pre-ordered the deck of many colors, a massive thank you. I would like you all to know that we are very close to going into manufacturing for the decks, so they'll be coming soon. So if you haven't yet, check out the pre-order link below and you get them at a discounted price. So I'll be back before you know it with another new video. And I hope that sometime between now and then, you find time in your day to slay the gray.